They say true strength is quiet, like the steady hands of an old soldier sipping his morning coffee. It was supposed to be just another slow morning at a roadside diner. Nothing fancy, just the clink of spoons, murmurs of conversation, and the smell of eggs and bacon. But what happened that day? It reminded everyone in that place what dignity looks like and what happens when you mistake it for weakness. A loudmouth biker thought he could push around an old man. Just a harmless fossil, right? But 22 minutes after that slap echoed through the diner, a convoy pulled up outside. Uniforms, Humvees, boots hitting pavement. That's when folks realized he'd just struck a lion, and the pride had come. Sit back, because I'm going to tell you exactly how it all unfolded and why it still gives me chills. The diner was small, nothing much to look at. A long counter with red stools that creaked, faded booths by the windows, and a jukebox that hadn't worked right since Reagan was in office. But it was honest, clean, and warm. Folks who came in there mostly kept to themselves. That morning in the back corner booth sat an elderly man. He looked like he'd seen 1,000 mornings like this. Hands weathered, face folded with the kind of lines you earn. He wore a navy blue cap stitched in gold. Vietnam veteran. His jacket had a faded U.S. Army patch on the shoulder. Probably hadn't been replaced in decades. No phone, no fuss. Just him, a black coffee, and the quiet pride that hung off him like an aura. No one bothered him. Everyone knew. He was just part of the place, until that biker showed up. The bell over the door jingled and in walked Trouble. Tall, loud, muscles rippling under a leather vest covered in skulls and patches. His boots stomped with intention, his eyes scanning the room like it owed him something. He didn't come for eggs or coffee. He came to be seen. The biker looked around, clearly sizing folks up. Then he locked eyes on the corner booth, the one with the old man sitting there, not even blinking. The biker marched over, planted his hand on the table and barked, "You're in my seat, Grandpa. Move before I move you." The old man didn't flinch, didn't even look up at first, just kept sipping his coffee. And when he did look up, his voice was soft, steady. "Son," he said, "I've survived things you wouldn't understand. But if you need the seat that badly, go ahead." Now you'd think that kind of grace would settle things down. But no, the biker didn't back off. He didn't take the seat. He leaned in closer, mocking the old man's voice, calling him a fossil, telling him he belonged in a museum. Folks in the diner were frozen. The waitress stood behind the counter, lips parted, unsure if she should step in. That's when it happened. With no warning, the biker slapped the veteran across the face. Hard. The sound rang through the diner like a gunshot. His cap flew to the ground. Coffee spilled across the table. A mother nearby pulled her child close. And the old man? He didn't raise a hand, didn't curse. He just sat there, slow as ever, reaching for his cap like it was all part of another morning. The waitress rushed over, eyes wide. "Are you okay?" she whispered. The old man nodded slowly, wiped his sleeve with the napkin and said, "Could you hand me that payphone?" She looked confused for a second, but brought it over. No cell phone. Just that old rotary-style receiver on a rolling stand. He picked it up, dialed a number from memory, and spoke in the same quiet voice he used for everything else. No panic, no raised tone. "Hey, son," he said, "it happened again. I'm at the diner, same spot. Love you." That's all. He hung up, handed the phone back to the waitress, and sat down like nothing had happened. The biker chuckled to himself and went back to his seat at the counter, looking proud. But his pride had a countdown, and it had just begun. Exactly 22 minutes later, the rumble began. It wasn't thunder. It wasn't a truck. It was formation. 4 military Humvees rolled up in perfect sync. Doors opened, boots hit gravel, and out stepped soldiers. Clean uniforms, sharp eyes, silent precision. No one said a word. The front doors of the diner swung open, and in walked a man who looked like command itself, broad-shouldered, stone-faced, medals glinting. His name tag read, Colonel Dawson. The room fell silent. Even the biker, who had started eating a burger, froze. The colonel's eyes swept the room. He walked straight past the counter, past the stunned diners, and up to the old man. He didn't ask questions. He saluted. Crisp, perfect. "Dad," he said, voice firm, "you okay?" The old man nodded, slow. "He hit me over a booth." That was all he said. The colonel turned. You could see the steel in his jaw. "Which one?" he asked. The biker stood, stammering. Whoa, I didn't know he was your dad, man. It was a misunderstanding." Colonel Dawson didn't flinch. The soldiers behind him had already moved. One to each door, one behind the biker. No guns drawn, no threats spoken. Just presence. "You put your hand on a decorated veteran," the colonel said, voice like gravel over steel. "A man who bled for this country while you were still learning to write your name." The biker raised his hands, pleading. "I didn't know." Dawson's eyes narrowed. "That's the problem. People like you never know. You never ask. You just assume no one will stand for them. Today, you assumed wrong." The manager of the diner stepped forward, voice shaking. "We've called the sheriff." Colonel Dawson nodded. "That won't be necessary. We'll wait. We're trained for that." The biker tried to walk toward the door, but two soldiers stepped in his path. "Please," one said coldly, "take a seat." For the next 15 minutes, the diner remained dead quiet. The old man sipped his freshly poured coffee. The soldiers stood still as statues. And the biker? He sat there, sweating, pale, looking like a little boy who just learned the monsters are real. When the police finally showed up, Colonel Dawson stepped outside and handed over a flash drive. "Full footage," he said. "Dash cam, audio, time-stamped, assault on a senior, public endangerment, disrespect to a veteran of war." The officer nodded. The biker didn't say a word. They cuffed him right there. As the officer walked him out, a young boy at one of the tables stood and lifted his hand to salute. The old veteran looked up and returned the gesture, slow and proud. That's when something incredible happened. A clap, then another. Then the entire diner, men, women, children, stood to their feet and began applauding. Not out of pity, not out of anger, but out of reverence. For the quiet man who never raised a hand, for the soldiers who came not with violence, but with honor, and for every silent warrior we walk past each day without realizing they once stood between chaos and the life we now live. The soldiers turned and filed out. Colonel Dawson gave his father one last nod, and just like that, they were gone. Now let me tell you something before we wrap this up. Never mistake silence for weakness. Never assume that just because someone walks slow or speaks soft, they're invisible. Some folks carry their battlefields inside them. Every step, every wrinkle, every quiet stare. And when you raise your hand to the wrong man, you might just find out who's standing behind him. If you've ever stood up for someone who couldn't fight back, or watched a moment where justice arrived dressed in uniform, then you understand what we're talking about. If this story moved you, I want you to do 3 things. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a karma in the comments to salute every quiet warrior who still walks among us. They might not say much, but we owe them everything.